Taking Back Your Body theme song, performed by Allie.
I talk. Would you like to know where your lettuce really grows? Come on down to the farmhouse down the street. It starts with the farmer, and the farmer plants the seed. And when we all pitch into the local bin, we get more what we need. Oh, oh, taking back your body. Be the hand that feeds. Taking back your body. Veggies rich and green. Oh, oh, taking back your body. Doing what we might to take back your body and fight the local fight.
Welcome to Taking Back Your Body. I am Andrew. I guess I'll be your host. And today we're making 4 dishes. We're making a kohlrabi and apple salad with a mustard dressing. We're making a spinach and bulgur salad. That'll be warm. We're making kale and potato veggie burgers. And we are making braised turnips. So I guess we'll get started. I'm going to start by putting some water on to boil for my bulgur. So I'm putting in 2 1/4 cups of water. That's going to go along with 1 cup of bulgur wheat. So another 1/4 cup of water in there. Then you want to cover that up, bring that to a boil, then put in 1 cup of bulgur wheat. Next I'm going to chop up some of my root veggies, and I'm going to have to break up this beautiful display which I made earlier. And I'm taking my potatoes. I'm going to wash my potatoes first, just toss them into a bowl with some water like I have in the sink. Got a little soap in here, just rinsing off all the junk that comes from the ground where these potatoes came from at the Kilpatrick Family Farm.
Yeah, I'm Michael Kilpatrick, and this is my brother Philip. We run Kilpatrick Family Farm.
We had a good old time with Philip and his brother, who are 2 young guys running a farm. And this is where all of this produce right here came from, the Kilpatrick Farm. They're over at the farmer's market on Saturday mornings. The market runs from 9 to 1. So I'm just cutting these up into fairly large chunks. I'm going to boil these. They're for the veggie burgers, so I'm just going to boil them until they get soft enough to mash them. Basically, we're making mashed potatoes, and then we're going to put some other crap in them and make them into veggie burgers. So just get these chopped up, and then these are banana fingerling potatoes, by the way. I don't know much about banana fingerling potatoes. They're very different from your russet Burbank that you get at the Price Chopper. Those are just your standard potatoes grown by these huge farms out in Idaho that churn them out for cents a pound. These are going to have a much to slightly different flavor. I don't really know. I've actually never had them before. I'm pretty excited to try them. But yeah, they're just going to bring a different flavor to the table than the bland brown ones you get at the chopper. I've got a lot of potatoes here. I think the recipe calls for 2 pounds of potatoes for these burgers, but really kind of my cooking mantra is that it's an art form and it's based on creativity. So when I'm cooking, I like to loosely base my dishes on the recipes and then just kind of take it from there. It's really a very variable form of art in which most things, it's not all, most things are a very inexact science. And if you got a few too many potatoes, if you have 14 grams instead of 10 grams of potatoes, it's not going to ruin your dish. It might even make it a lot better. If you screw up in that way, it might, you might find out that you have a great new recipe at hand. So I guess be creative. Don't worry too much about the recipe, and just it'll turn out well. Even if it doesn't turn out well, then you'll know exactly what not to do next time. So I don't have any water on. I'm gonna not take the dirty water that I just washed my potatoes in, but I'm gonna take this other pan and just fill it up with a bunch of water. With grains, you need exact water to grain ratios because when you're cooking grains, they're soaking up the water and just getting all nice and tasty. But with potatoes, you're just cooking them in the water. They're not actually soaking up any of the water. You're just heating up the water, and then they're heating up your potatoes. So you don't have to worry about the water to potato ratio, which is always fun when you have to worry about those things. I don't have a top for this, so I'm going to use my other pan, because why not? It works, and if you don't have things in your kitchen, you can usually find other things that work for those purposes. I actually don't even need to wait for that to heat up. I'm just going to put my potatoes right in. Like I said, this is a lot of potatoes. I may not use all of these because I may end up having way too much. But I can get this up here. Just drop them in like that. Watch out because the water probably is not hot yet, but boiling water is not fun to have on you. So that's about all the potatoes that are going to fit in, and I'm going to stop putting them in now. I'm going to let these hang out over here. Probably can't even see me right now. Next order of business is my turnips. I say that oddly because this is my turnip. Usually you would have multiple turnips, but this is just the biggest freaking turnip I've ever seen, and I'm excited to use it. You could give it a rinse underwater again, get all that dirt and junk off. Usually what you want to do with turnips when they're little, you cut off the little dangly thing on the bottom and then also the greens on the top. I'm going to guess this is where the greens came from. Doesn't really matter because I'm cutting off both sides. So just cut it off like that, toss it aside. And then what you want is, your turnips are generally going to be about this big. You want to kind of quarter it and make them into wedges. So I guess I'll just cut this in half if I can get my knife through it. Also, another thing is, the recipe calls for skinning, taking off this outer skin of the turnip. I'm not going to do that because, for two reasons. I don't know about most, but in most root vegetables, the skin is going to have a lot of nutrients, a lot more in terms of ratio than your just the inner root part. And so I'm going to leave it on for those nutrients. And then also I cooked this recipe a few days ago and didn't see the part where it said skin them, and I really liked the texture that you had. You kind of have a tough but chewy but really tasty outside interacting with the delicious and sweet interior. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. So you'll just have to wait and see about that. These chunks are kind of big, not working out like I had hoped, but we're just going to go with the flow, and I have a feeling it's going to work out. I've got a good feeling, in fact, it's going to work out. This is still really large. So, all of these veggies in front of me, except for the apples came from Saratoga Apple, which they're at the market on Saturdays, but they also have a stand in Case Center on Fridays. I don't know the exact hours, but you should check that out. They've got most of their apples, and then also products from other farms in the area. I got these from the farmer's market. They're Honey Crisp apples, and they're really tasty, very crispy, as the name implies, not falsely. But other than that, all of my veggies right here came from the Kilpatricks. And the Kilpatrick's farm is out in Granville, which is about an hour north of here. Only about 45 minutes away. 45 miles away. Back to food miles. All of this produce came from 45 miles away. When you're buying those potatoes at the price chopper, they're likely coming from Idaho, where they're grown in just these huge farms. And I'm going to put some butter in this pan right now to get my turnips braising away. Coming from huge farms, they're using a lot of non-renewable fossil fuels to grow and transport that produce to, the price chopper here, and those are things we can't get back. So one benefit to buying locally is reducing the miles that your food is traveling, quite literally. So all of this food was grown, 45 minutes away, an hour away, and that just is really doing wonders for just one of the environmental boons of buying local food. There's this thing called the 100-mile diet, which I don't know who it's endorsed by, but the idea is that if you can get your food from within 100 miles of wherever your home place is, then you're doing better than buying things from California. A whole lot of produce and things that are not in season in the wintertime are coming from California because they've got great weather over there. Next thing I'm going to do is chop up a bunch of onions and get those caramelizing away in this other pan where I'm going to start heating up some oil. Now my water is boiling like a madman. So I am going to take my cracked bulgur wheat, which I got from Four Seasons Natural Food Store. I forgot to mention that we're being sponsored by Four Seasons, which is the natural food store on Phyla Street in town. They've been great, and they're in tune with the message of our show. So I'm putting in 1 cup of cracked bulgur wheat for my 2 1/4 cups of water. I had the top on here because if you're heating up the water, it's going to start evaporating, and then you're not going to have 2 1/4 cups when you put in your wheat, and then it's going to kind of it's going to just undercook because there's not enough water for the grain to absorb. So I'm going to put that in and then reduce it to a simmer. And that's good. That'll take about, I think, 20 minutes until it's nice and delicious. So now I'm going to put in 1 1/2 cups of water because I forgot to do that. I don't know if you can still hear me. Yeah, I forgot to do that, so I'm putting in my water, and then also just a touch of salt to bring out some flavor. Again, it says some number of teaspoons, but it doesn't matter because that's just a little bit. Then I'm also required to put in some lemon. Again, it says a few tablespoons or teaspoons or something, and I know there's some kind of conversion that people use, but I don't know it, so I'm going to put in half, and it's just going to be good. So squeeze it top-wise up, if you understand what that means, so that you get the seeds in your hand when you're squeezing, and let the juice run through the fingers. Basically, braising is a term for a method of cooking. Basically, just cooking it on a relatively low heat for a long time. So I'm just going to let that cook, and the next thing I need to do is cut up my onions. Now, as you probably know, onions, well, they make your eyes sting and make you cry when you cut them. And that is because onions absorb sulfur from the air and the soil, and they store that in cells inside this rooty part. And when you agitate that, when you cut it or when you chew into it, it releases, it's also the source of the flavor of the onions. So when you cut into that, it releases this defense mechanism, which is the stinginess. And that just really sucks. So if you have contact lenses, then contacts or glasses, you generally don't get that stinginess. But I don't wear contact lenses, so I've actually got something else that I prepared to help my eyes. Right, so again, this is a kind of vapor. It's a mist, if you will, that's seeping into your eyes. So I brought some goggles that I'm just going to put on, and it provides a barrier between you and those chemicals. So not only do I look awesome in these goggles, I'm protecting myself from the onions' self-defenses. Imagine that. So I'm going to save this last one because it looks like I've got a good amount of onions in here. And then again, I'm just going to go over here and throw them in my pan. And had I heated up this pan properly, they would be sizzling right now. They would be sizzling, and that's a good sign. I'm going to put some salt in with my onions because that brings out some moisture, gets that water evaporating faster, and it's going to give me those concentrated flavors. I'm going to throw my burner on up there, which is going nicely. I got to find something to put on top of these turnips because they need to be covered. And that is going to be I'm going to bring over 2 options. Perfect. Next is garlic. I'm going to stir these guys. Next is garlic. This is garlic. It's got the big long thing on here. You usually don't see that in the chopper. I don't know why. Maybe it's harder to pack, not as economical. Pretty freaking hard though. I think that might even be the shoot coming out or something. I don't really know. If I can break this apart. There's probably a trick of how to do this, but I don't know. My trusty mate is telling me to do that. So it worked. To get the cloves out of their protective shells that they don't want to come out of, just put your knife on it and whack it. Don't worry about cutting yourself. It's pretty hard to do. I've never done it before. And then it comes right out. And just going to, as Rachel Ray would say, run my knife through these guys. I like to cut off this brown part on the bottom. I don't know if you can see this right here. It's kind of nasty. Doesn't really taste good. It's really hard. So I'm going to just throw those aside. And then just get this chopped up. Increase the surface area so that you're getting more flavor running through your onions and then through the rest of your dishes. Now I'm not going to bring my board over because I don't have much stuff going on. Now these potatoes are boiling pretty good. You just want to boil them enough so that they get soft enough to mash with a fork. Veggie burgers are just vegetables that you've cooked or made slightly moist in some way so that you can press them together into a patty, then fry them up into burger form. And then they're just great because you can put a bunch of junk on them and make them taste even better. And they're just awesome. I love them. What's next? I'm going to check out my recipes. I think that I am going to cut my kohlrabi. Kohlrabi is a root vegetable that, well, that's about all I know about it. It's similar to jicama. I don't know if you guys know what that is or have ever eaten it. It's really just a vegetable for texture. That's kind of taken away from it. Don't let them hear you say that, but they don't have much flavor. It's just really, it's more of a nice summertime vegetable. You get that nice refreshing crisp, but we're having a lot of other hot dishes tonight, so I thought I'd bring back the cool with kohlrabi and apple salad or something like that. But so this also, I really don't know anything about this, whether it's got anything in the skin or the skin's edible, so I'm gonna take my goggles off. And then I'm going to take off the skin. So I cut off the top and the bottom, and now I'm just going to go down like that. And if I need to, I'll flip it over and get the other side as well. But most things that you do like this, you don't really have to worry about getting every last piece of green or whatever color the skin is off. But like I said, skin could be poisonous. Probably not, but that's not a risk I'd really like to take tonight. And then I'm going to julienne it. That is another fairly cooking term. It's basically cooking lingo for long strips, long skinny strips. So don't let them fool you at a restaurant by saying something is julienne and you think that it's gourmet. It's not, it's just little strips. Shoot that off to the side. I'm going to cut it in half. This is another one of those where I'm kind of just figuring out how to cut it all along the way. And that's where creativity comes back into it. If you wanted to, the idea is that you're going to have a salad and little strips of whatever this is, kohlrabi. And if you want it in a different shape, then you make it in a different shape. There's no one standing there and gonna, arrest you if you dice it. Wouldn't want that. Wouldn't want the Dyson police. But you really do want them to be thin because, like I said, there's not much flavor and it's really just there for the texture. So I'm gonna cut them rather thin and hope that that's gonna turn out all right. And if it doesn't turn out all right, next time I will know what to do. And that time it will turn out great. I'm going to check on this stuff on the stove. I think it looks like the potatoes are boiling very rapidly. I don't know if you can use that word to describe boiling, but they were. And then stir around my onions. If you let them go too long, it looks like the heat's actually too high. You want to cook them on a low heat just because they'll burn otherwise if you don't. And you want to cook them slowly to really get that caramelization of the sugars going. Potatoes, you're cooking until soft. It looks like they're soft, but I have no idea, so I'm going to test them with a spoon. Basically, if you can just put it right into the potatoes and they're done. So I'm going to drain those if I can find something to protect my hand. And I did. So go over here, dump it out. I don't have a strainer, so I'm just kind of dumping. And you don't have to worry about it. If some fall out, you can always put them back in. It's hot. So you also want to make sure you're not touching the metal because that's just silly. We all know hot metal is very hot. And again, I am going to leave a little bit of that water in there, partly because a lot of it's going to evaporate off. And then also when I'm mashing it, the water is going to kind of help it bind together a little bit. It's going to have It's actually going to have a lot of starch left over from the cooking of the potatoes that come out of the potatoes, and that's going to make the mashed version stick together better. Those are going. I'm going to check on my bulgur as well, which it is very done. I'm going to turn that off. Very done in a good way, though. In a very good way. To get that off, I'm just going to mix that around. It's going to be toasted cracked bulgur. The toasting is in the process. So I guess I'll give you a shot of me getting that off. You can see it's a little burned on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and say that burning was there. Someone didn't clean it very thoroughly. This is just cooked perfectly. Fire's off. And that's just going to kind of keep it warm. My potatoes are steaming. Check on my turnips, which are braising away. Oh yeah. Oh, those smell great. Oh yeah. Now, what I will do, keep chopping kohlrabi. Kohlrabi. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. I think I may have, but the Kilpatrick Farm up in Granville, they're a pretty small farm. They're just a few acres, and they only have a few greenhouses in the wintertime. So they're not certified organic, and I know that that is something that a lot of people are looking for in their produce and all foods today. It's kind of become the next big thing in the food world. Organic, it is a lot better for the environment and for several other things. But the Kilpatricks are not certified organic.
No, we're certified naturally grown.
And that's kind of for several reasons. The main one being that the certification process is pretty tough, and it's regulated by the USDA. It's very unfavorable for small farmers, just for a whole slew of reasons that I won't get into. But the Kilpatricks are certified natural, which is also a national program which is regulated by, I don't actually know the name of the organization, but it is regulated by farmers. The Kilpatrick brothers are part of they are inspectors for this certified natural seal. The seal is basically the same thing as the organic seal. It ensures that there are no synthetic pesticides or fertilizers or anything like that. No GM crops. The only thing it doesn't mean is that they have to buy organic seeds, which ironically also large-scale organic farms don't have to buy organic seeds either. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's just more accessible to small-scale farmers of the sort that are coming to the Saratoga market.
And one of the other things for the certified naturally grown system is you have to sell within, I think, 200 miles of your home farm. So you really can't be shipping it cross country.
So I mentioned that as part of the organic and natural certification is that you can't use synthetic pesticides or fertilizers. That means that, or synthetic means non-naturally occurring. It doesn't occur in nature anywhere.
We put on a lot of leaves, put down lots of straw mulch, anything that would organic matter.
So nothing synthetic?
No.
There's a list of pesticides and herbicides that you can use in organics that are derived from natural sources like plants. I mentioned earlier that the stinginess in onions is from a natural defense mechanism, and that is the same deal. There are some that are very toxic to insects and weeds and all that jazz, so organics can use those. Fertilizer is something that you put on to your crops, and it enhances the way that they grow, in very short. Fertilizers are derived from nitrogen products. That is because, I forget who, someone said that carbon provides life while nitrogen provides life. Both of these atoms are integral to life on the planet. Every living being needs them. There's just a lot more carbon, and nitrogen is crucial in forming amino acids and nucleic acids, which everything needs. And so this is the main ingredient in fertilizers. It makes things grow. Things need it to grow. So we're going to have a very, very quick lesson as to why synthetic fertilizers are bad. I've got my whiteboard right here and my trusty marker. There's a lot of nitrogen in the atmosphere, and this is very hard for us to fix as humans because nitrogen has a triple bond, which is very hard to separate. requires a lot of energy, and we can't do it. So you've got your plants, that's the root, plants can take it in and make it into a usable form of nitrogen for us. So in the past, before the process of making synthetic fertilizer was possible, we had to rely on naturally occurring sources and deposits of nitrogen. A very famous one is bird poop. You know that historically farmers would use manure as fertilizer on their farms. That's because there's a lot of nitrogen in poop. And it's just really good for the farm system, but we have now turned away from that because of one man, and that man's name is Fritz Haber.
Fritz Haber. Born in 1868, a German Jew, his parents knew not of the great things that Fritz was destined to do. Years later, degree of chemistry in hand, Fritz discovered a discovery that would forever change the land. He produced ammonia from molecules in the air. For many people of the future, this would prove to be unfair. The problem, you see, is that the process does require non-renewable resources for which the consequences are dire. Not only did crops get fertilizer, but Hitler's army gained a new friend. With Zyklon B and chlorine gases, it seemed to be the beginning of the end. In 1918, Fritz won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry. It was a great process, it's true, but it served as the birth of agro-industry.